Welcome, everyone. Today, we're tackling the whole Industrial Revolution, start to finish.
From the very first spark to, well, the phones in our pockets.
Exactly. How did we go from handmade everything to, like, self-driving cars? It's mind-blowing.
Before all this industry, though, picture it. Mostly farms, everything made by hand, slow and tough work.
Like, to get clothes.
Yeah.
How many people were spinning thread just for one weaver to work with?
Multiple spinners per weaver, and most folks made clothes just for themselves in India, China, the Americas.
So my t-shirt, it's the result of a huge shift in how things work. That's wild.
It really is. And this shift, it starts in Great Britain, mid-1700s or so.
What was so special about Britain then?
A few things, actually. They had peace, good trade going on, and resources, especially coal, top-notch stuff.
So they had what it took to kick things off.
Exactly. That's the first industrial revolution. And textiles. That was the heart of it.
Right. I remember reading about the spinning jenny, water frame, power loom.
And then in the U.S., Eli Whitney's cotton gin comes along. Boom, cotton's the king industry.
So it's like dominoes. One invention leads to another, changing everything.
It really is. We also see huge advancements in iron production during this time.
Oh yeah, like the reverberatory furnace and new techniques for boring those steam engine cylinders, right?
Right. And speaking of iron, we can't forget the Iron Bridge in Shropshire, the world's first iron bridge.
Pretty amazing symbol of what they could build then. But all this change, what about the people?
The people part is key. You get factories popping up, people moving from farms to cities, urbanization on a fast track.
It wasn't all sunshine and roses, was it?
Not exactly. Working conditions were often harsh. Child labor was a problem. Pollution was terrible. A downside to all the progress.
Did life even get better for people back then?
It's interesting. Life expectancy didn't really go up much during this time, despite the advancements.
Not what I expected. But what about infant mortality? Did that improve?
Now that did see a good improvement, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so some good mixed with the bad. So that was the first industrial revolution. Then what?
Then comes the second, late 1800s to early 1900s. Innovation shifts from Britain to the US and Germany.
This is when mass production really takes off.
You got it? Steel, electricity, chemicals, communication. It all explodes during this period.
So that's when steel becomes king.
Exactly. The Bessemer process comes along and boom, mass-produced steel replaces iron in tons of stuff.
Buildings, machines, everything. And electricity? Wow, talk about a game changer.
Totally. Light bulbs light up our homes and streets, electric motors, power factories, even streetcars come into play.
I can't imagine life without electricity now. How did people adjust back then?
It was huge, e.g. Think about it. Streetcars, then eventually electricity in homes, changed how people lived, how they moved around.
It's crazy how one invention can change everything. Did they even know how big the deal electricity was back then?
I'm sure they had some idea. But yeah, it was transformative. And then there's the whole chemical industry.
Oh, right. Germany was a powerhouse in that, weren't they?
Leading the way, yeah. Synthetic dyes, the basis for modern industrial chemistry, all came from that period.
So we're talking new materials, new possibilities, and communication must have been completely different too.
For sure. The telegraph, then the telephone, and eventually radio. Suddenly, people could communicate across huge distances almost instantly.
Imagine the impact on everything. Business deals, staying in touch with family.
Global business and culture were changed forever.
Wow, it's like human connection entered a whole new era. And of course, the story doesn't end there.
Yeah.
We're heading for the digital age now with the third industrial revolution.
Yep. And in this revolution, it's all about information. Starting in the 1970s, the transistor, the integrated circuit, then the microprocessor, these are what paved the way for our computers and smartphones.
So that's how computing power landed right in our pocket.
Exactly. And this revolution was all about information, right? So more data storage, faster processing power, faster communication, the internet, and the World Wide Web.
Globalization, new business models, entire digital economies. It's mind-blowing how much impact this revolution has had.
It's the world we live in now.
Crazy to think it all started with those tiny transistors. But hold on, we're already on the brink of something else. What's the deal with the fourth industrial revolution?
This one is blurring the lines, you see. Physical, digital, biological, all blending together.
That's happening in OW. What's driving this blending, these blurred lines?
Think artificial intelligence, robotics, self-driving cars, biotechnology, genetic engineering, new materials, 3D printing.
So like self-driving cars on the streets, 3D printed organs, AI making decisions that affect our lives.
That's it. This revolution is pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure. This journey through the Industrial Revolutions, it's just incredible. I can't help but wonder what it all means for the future.
That's the big question, isn't it? We've seen how the Industrial Revolution has changed society, but where do we go from here? How will AI and robotics shape our world?
It's a question worth pondering. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's zero in on one specific part of this fourth industrial revolution, Industry 4.0.
Right. Industry 4.0, that's all about smart factories. Picture systems talking to each other, machines communicating, data flowing smoothly, production optimizing itself in real time.
Wait, so factories are becoming super intelligent and efficient?
Exactly. And all this intelligence comes from a whole network of technologies, including mobile devices, location tracking, RFID tags, advanced human-machine interfaces, even fraud detection systems.
It's like a digital web woven through the entire manufacturing process.
That's a great way to put it. You've got sensors collecting data, big data analytics finding patterns, and augmented reality helping workers on the factory floor.
It's amazing how much data is involved. What's the end goal with all this, though?
The goal is to create a manufacturing environment that's more efficient, flexible, and responsive. Imagine factories adapting instantly to customer needs, producing custom-made goods on a massive scale.
So we're moving from mass producing the same things over and over to mass customization. That's pretty cool.
It is. And it's not just about making things cheaper and faster. Industry 4.0 has the potential to create entirely new business models, boost global competitiveness, and even reshape entire supply chains.
Okay, that's huge. But let's be real. With all this automation, are jobs going to disappear? What happens to the human workers when machines become this smart?
It's a valid concern, and people are definitely talking about it, especially in countries like Germany, where they're heavily invested in Industry 4.0. They even have a term for it, Work 4.0.
Work 4.0, huh? So it's about rethinking the nature of work itself in this new landscape. It's fascinating how these revolutions force us to rethink everything, from how we produce goods to the skills we need to thrive in the workplace.
Exactly. The transition won't be easy, but the potential for innovation and growth is huge.
Speaking of transitions, are there any good examples of how different industries are adapting to Industry 4.0?
Absolutely. Take the aerospace industry, for instance. They're known for low-volume production, so automating everything isn't always feasible, but they're finding creative ways to apply Industry 4.0 principles to boost productivity.
Okay, give me an example. How are they doing that?
Well, companies like Meggitt PLC, they make aerospace parts, and they have research projects dedicated to finding these efficiencies.
What kind of projects?
They're developing technologies that can actually predict when equipment is likely to fail. Then, maintenance processes are triggered automatically. Think about the impact on downtime and delays.
Wow, it's like giving machines a sixth sense. So predictive maintenance is one example. What else is out there?
Bosch is another company that's deeply involved in Industry 4.0. They're using these principles to create self-organizing systems that can react to unexpected changes in production.
What do you mean by self-organizing systems?
Imagine a factory floor that can actually reconfigure itself instantly to deal with a sudden shift in demand or a problem in the supply chain.
It's like the factory becomes a living, breathing organism. I'm also curious about this concept of Innovation 4.0. I saw it mentioned as a sort of parallel movement happening in academia and research.
Yes, Innovation 4.0. It's all about bringing the principles of Industry 4.0 into research and development. Universities are building cutting-edge facilities that incorporate robotics, data capture, advanced modeling, all into how they do research.
So it's not just about applying these technologies to making products, but actually using them to accelerate scientific discovery itself.
Exactly. A great example is the Materials Innovation Factory at the University of Liverpool. They're pushing the boundaries of computer-aided material science.
It's like the revolution is feeding itself, driving innovation on multiple fronts. It's also exciting, but I have to admit, a part of me wonders, what about the downsides? Are there people who are critical of Industry 4.0 and this rush toward automation?
Of course. No revolution comes without its critics. Some argue that this intense focus on efficiency and automation might be undervaluing the human touch.
That makes sense. We've all experienced the frustration of dealing with automated systems that just don't get it.
Right, and there are also valid concerns about data privacy and security in these increasingly interconnected systems.
It's a lot to consider. But before we get too deep into those downsides, let's rewind a bit and explore what led to the Industrial Revolution in the first place. What sparked this incredible wave of innovation?
That's a great question. It's about shifting our focus from what changed to why those changes happened. And the factors that led to the Industrial Revolution are complex and interconnected, but there are a few key elements we can highlight.
Okay, let's hear them. What were some of the sparks that ignited the Industrial Revolution?
One big factor was the rise of capitalism, the move towards free markets, private property rights, and profit-driven innovation. All that created fertile ground for entrepreneurs and inventors to flourish.
So a new economic system gave people the incentives and the freedom to experiment and disrupt old ways of doing things.
Exactly. And this economic shift happened alongside a scientific revolution that was changing how people understood the world. New discoveries in physics, chemistry, mathematics, these led to practical applications that fueled technological advancement.
It's amazing how abstract scientific ideas could turn into tangible inventions that changed the course of history.
It really speaks to the power of human curiosity and ingenuity. And we can't forget about resources. Great Britain, where the Industrial Revolution began, had abundant natural resources like coal and iron, crucial for fueling those new industries.
It sounds like a perfect storm of factors coming together at the right time and place. But why Britain specifically? What made it the cradle of the Industrial Revolution?
That's a question historians have debated for centuries, but there are a few key factors that stand out.
I'm all ears. Let's dive into the specifics of what made Britain the perfect breeding ground for this revolution.
Well, first and foremost, Great Britain had a relatively stable political system, no major wars or internal conflicts, which create a climate of stability that encouraged investment and innovation.
So peace and stability were essential for economic growth and the freedom to experiment.
Exactly. And this stability was combined with a strong legal system. That meant property rights were protected, contracts were enforced, all of which fostered trust and confidence among businesses and investors.
It's like setting the ground rules for a fair game, in this case, the economic game. What else was crucial?
Britain also had a robust financial system. The development of banks and other financial institutions meant there was easier access to capital, allowing entrepreneurs to fund their ventures and expand their operations.
So money was flowing, ideas were brewing, and there was a sense of optimism about the future.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about geography. Being an island nation gave Britain access to global trade routes, connecting them to markets and resources from around the world.
It sounds like Britain had all the right ingredients in the recipe for an industrial revolution. But even with all those factors in place, something had to kickstart the whole process. What were some of those early innovations that set the wheels in motion?
The textile industry played a critical role in those early stages. Inventions like the flying shuttle and the spinning jenny, they drastically increased the speed and efficiency of cloth production.
Textiles. Our source material really highlighted the importance of cotton and how it became such a driving force in that early phase.
Yes, the demand for cotton textiles was booming, and Britain's textile industry was eager to meet that demand. Those early innovations allowed them to produce cloth at an unprecedented scale and at lower costs.
And it wasn't just about making more cloth, right? There were fascinating details about how cotton production itself changed the social and economic landscape, particularly in places like India and the US.
Absolutely. India, for example, had a long tradition of hand-woven cotton textiles. But the mechanization of the industry in Britain had a profound impact on global trade patterns.
It seems like cotton was both a driver of innovation and a symbol of the interconnectedness of that emerging global economy.
That's a great point. The story of cotton is really a story of global trade, industrial competition, and the shifting fortunes of nations.
It's a reminder that even seemingly simple products can have a complex and far-reaching impact on the world.
That's just one thread in the vast tapestry of the Industrial Revolution.
Speaking of threads, let's not forget about those other key industries that played a vital role, particularly iron and steel.
Ah, yes. Iron and steel were the backbone of industrialization. From bridges and buildings to machinery and transportation, these materials were essential for building the infrastructure of a modern society.
I remember reading about some incredible inventions that revolutionized iron and steel production. The reverberatory furnace and those precision boring machines for steam engine cylinders really stood out.
Those inventions allowed for the production of higher quality iron and steel at a much larger scale, fueling a wide range of industries and further accelerating the pace of innovation.
It's amazing how one breakthrough can create a cascade of advancements across so many different fields. And then, of course, there's the iconic Iron Bridge, a true symbol of this era of iron and innovation.
The Iron Bridge is a testament to the ingenuity and ambition of the Industrial Revolution. It represents a pivotal moment when humans began to harness the power of these new materials to reshape the world around them.
It's like a tangible reminder of how far we've come since those early days of handcrafted goods.
It's a journey that continues to unfold even today. But as we've been discussing, the Industrial Revolution wasn't just about new materials and machines. It was a social and economic transformation that reshaped the lives of millions of people. And one aspect that really stood out to me was the impact on working conditions.
That's right. The shift from a rural agrarian life to factory work was a dramatic one, and it certainly came with its share of challenges.
The early factories were often harsh and unforgiving places. Workers faced long hours, low wages, and unsafe working environments. The lack of regulations and the relentless drive for profit often put workers at risk.
It's a stark reminder that progress can come at a human cost. But as the Industrial Revolution continued, wasn't there a growing awareness of the plight of factory workers, especially children?
Absolutely. Reformers began advocating for better working conditions, and eventually, governments started stepping in with regulations.
I recall reading about attempts to address these issues, like the Health and Morals of Apprentices Act of 1802 and the Cotton Mills and Factories Act of 1819.
Those early acts faced a lot of resistance from factory owners, but they marked a turning point. It was the beginning of recognizing the need to protect workers' rights and well-being. The struggle for workers' rights continued throughout the Industrial Revolution and beyond, leading to the labor movements and social reforms that shaped the modern workplace.
It's a powerful reminder that progress isn't just about technological advancements. It's also about creating a more just and equitable society for everyone.
Absolutely. As we navigate the complexities of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, it's crucial to remember the lessons of the past and work towards a future where technological progress benefits all of humanity.
It's fascinating to see how concerns about working conditions have been a recurring theme throughout the Industrial Revolution. I'm curious, how did these concerns evolve as technology progressed? Did the later revolutions bring about different challenges?
You're right, it's a pattern. And as we moved into the second and third revolutions, the nature of work itself started to shift. Mass production, automation, these led to new kinds of jobs, often needing specialized skills.
So less manual labor, more technical, specialized roles.
Exactly. And that brought new worries about training and education. Technology was advancing so fast, workers had to constantly adapt, learn new skills just to stay employed.
It's almost like a race. Education trying to keep up with technology, people trying to stay ahead of the curve.
A great analogy. And that challenge is still with us today, going into the fourth revolution. AI, robotics, automation. It's both exciting and a little scary for the future of work.
Yeah, I can see that. More efficiency, more productivity.
Yeah.
But also, what happens to the jobs people have now?
It's a tough question, no easy answers. But looking back, humans are really good at adapting and innovating. Each revolution had its problems, but we always found ways to overcome them, create new opportunities.
That's a bit reassuring, I have to admit. Even if the future seems uncertain, we've got a history of figuring things out.
That's the spirit. And as we look ahead, it's so important to talk openly about how we want to shape this fourth revolution. How do we invest in education to prepare people? What about safety nets for those who might lose jobs to automation? How do we make sure everyone benefits from these advancements?
It sounds like a call to action. We can't just be passive, letting technology decide our fate. We have to actively shape a future that works for everyone.
Exactly. The Industrial Revolution has shown us that technology can have huge effects, good and bad. It's up to us to learn from history and make smart choices about how we use these advancements to build a better world.
It really strikes me that the Industrial Revolution has been this story of constantly adapting and moving forward. But it also makes you think about the balance between, cool new tech and how people are actually doing. Looking back at all this history, what are some big takeaways as we face the challenges of, NW, the 21st century?
I think one of the biggest lessons is that technology itself, it's not inherently good or bad. It's a tool, right? And any tool can be used in good ways or bad ways.
Yeah, makes sense. We've gotten amazing things from the Industrial Revolution stuff that's improved our lives in countless ways. But there's also been exploitation, damage to the environment, and a lot of social upheaval.
Exactly. It all comes down to how we choose to use technology and how we deal with the consequences.
So We're in the driver's seat, not the tech itself. What else should we keep in mind?
Technology keeps evolving faster and faster, so people and societies as a whole need the skills and knowledge to keep up, to thrive in this constantly changing world.
We've already seen how each revolution kind of shook things up. Old industries disappear, new ones pop up. Sounds like lifelong learning is going to be essential just to keep up with the job market even.
It's the name of the game now. We also have to think about the ethics of all this new tech. AI, genetic engineering. These are powerful tools, and we need to consider what could go wrong, set ethical guidelines from the start.
Right. The Industrial Revolution shows us that progress without thinking about ethics, well, you can have some nasty unintended consequences. We got to learn from those mistakes and make sure ethical decision-making is a priority as we shape the future.
Couldn't agree more. And one last thing, I think it's easy to get caught up in thinking technology will solve everything. But it's not a magic bullet. It's a tool to help us address problems, but it's only one piece of the puzzle.
So we need the tech A&D social, political changes to create a truly fair and just society.
That's the idea. It's about finding that balance. Technological progress, social responsibility, and a commitment to making the world better for everyone.
That's a great way to sum it up. This deep dive into the Industrial Revolution has been eye-opening, that's for sure. Gives you a lot to think about as we face the 21st century head-on. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone.